Hello again, my friends, and welcome back. So here we are, it's another week of the Royal Ramble podcast, and it's coming at you this week a day early. Consider it an early Christmas present, or perhaps Easter present, though I don't know how many of you would have gotten Easter presents growing up. Well, I guess there are Easter eggs and chocolate and whatnot, so it does kind of work. We are now a second week removed from the WrestleMania 38 extravaganza. Has it kicked in yet? Believe it or not, we are only about 50 weeks away from WrestleMania 39 next year in Los Angeles. Roman versus The Rock, let's do it! You know, while that is the latest rumor, it was kind of teased in this past week's episode of Young Rock, featuring a scene with what was supposed to be a young Roman Reigns from the mid-90s. Just watching that scene made me realize the age gap that exists between them. And you know, looking at The Rock, you wouldn't even know he was a few weeks shy of his 50th birthday. That is the golden birthday year, and he was in fact the golden boy of the WWE for many, many years. Just something to think about. But while you're thinking about that, you can also think about this. One of the themes of this week's episode is Young Rock, and I had a chance earlier this week to chat with Downtown Bruno himself. Not the actor that plays him, but the very man that the character was based on. WWE fans may know him better as Dr. Harvey Whippleman. And yes, please don't forget that doctor title. But that interview is coming a little later on. For now, I want to focus on a product that is not usually talked about on this and several other wrestling podcasts, and that's Impact Wrestling. They, of course, have their big pay-per-view coming up in a week's time called Rebellion, and I cannot emphasize enough what a great job I think they've done in not only putting this one together, but also in the build-up, especially the tremendous video packs this week for both Moose and Josh Alexander. I used to watch Impact quite frequently back when it was still TNA. I had to suffer through all the booking catastrophes created by one Vince Russo at the time as I was writing TV reports for both Slam and Fight Network, and it was a product that was endlessly chipping away at my sanity. Once they were dropped from Spike TV in 2014, I really didn't care enough about the product to seek it out on another network, and thus I stopped watching altogether for several years. In about 2016 or 2017, I decided to give it another chance, but was exclusively watching their pay-per-views while still avoiding the TV at all costs. The pay-per-views were actually pretty good at the time, but then the in-ring has never been an issue with this company, or really any company. That's what keeps me watching as a fan. It's the booking that is the big turnoff most of the time. Once COVID hit, I started working from home, which freed up a lot more of my time, especially since my wife was still commuting to work, so I was alone most of the day, and so I decided to give their program another shot. I liked the first week, but after a few it became almost painful to watch again, not just because of the booking, but the production value at the time was so awful. And then having empty arenas didn't help much either. I almost swore off the product completely after their terrible Bound for Glory pay-per-view last year. Well, I should clarify, the pay-per-view itself wasn't terrible, but there were a lot of booking decisions that I called into question, specifically in the end, which saw Moose cash in his Call Your Shot title opportunity after Josh Alexander had just defeated Christian Cage for the world title. I feel like any other night I wouldn't have minded, but this is their biggest show of the year, and they chose to end it on a very sour note, which didn't sit too well with me. I gave up for a few weeks after that, but started watching again during the holidays, and I must say that they have been absolutely killing it this year. I don't know if it's because of a change in management or booking or, whatever they've been doing has been working well, so I hope they continue doing it. With that, I want to take a look at next Saturday's lineup and give you a little preview, or as my boys in 2.0 would say, a taste of what's to come, match by match. To start, we've got a three-way match that was recently announced between Chris Sabin, Jay White, and Steve Maclin. Now, anybody who's been following my posts on social media should already know that I'm not a huge fan of Maclin, and I think this would have been better as a one-on-one match between Sabin and White, even though we had already seen it at the Multiverse show. Maclin I just find to be very bland and boring. There's not a whole lot about him that stands out to me. I think this one will probably end with the babyface winning it. I can see a scenario where White and Maclin will try to work together against Sabin, but it'll end up costing them in the end, where they each try to screw each other over, which opens the door for Sabin to take advantage and pin Maclin. This will eventually lead to several weeks of Maclin trying to pledge his allegiance to Bullet Club, and they kind of use him as their lackey, similar to how Disco Inferno was positioned in the Wolfpack. Unfortunately, this is really the only use I see for Maclin. Tomohiro Ishii is on the card, ladies and gentlemen. Might I say, I love how all these companies are working together. He's facing Jonah on the card, and Jonah has had a pretty good string of matches lately against PCO. In fact, he won all of those matches if I'm not mistaken. I'm expecting this to be a very hard-hitting contest, and I think Jonah's string of victories will continue with a big win here. But then I was very surprised that they put Ishii over Eddie Edwards at the last show, so who even knows? I don't think they would have given Jonah all those wins over PCO if he wasn't in line for a push. And the goal here should be to position some potential challengers for Josh Alexander, assuming that he's winning the belt, so I say Jonah wins. Jonathan Gresham has been on fire lately as well. He had a great match with Rocky Romero this past week, and he takes on Eddie Edwards on this show. They haven't made it clear though if that match is for the ROH World title. I almost kind of prefer that it was, because if it's not, it kind of telegraphs that Edwards may win. I think Edwards definitely needs a strong win here because he'd been doing nothing but losing lately, and if the goal of Honor No More is to destroy Impact from within, then this group needs to get on the winning track, because therein lies the difference between the NWO and Retribution. I would like to see Eddie weasel his way to victory here and win the ROH title if it's on the line. I can actually see a surprise run-in by Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt, as they kinda got into it with Gresham at the Supercard of Honor event. So they cost him the match and branch off into a feud when ROH returns full time. Again, I'd really prefer it if Eddie won the title. I'm not a huge fan of Eddie Edwards, but I think for this storyline to work, they need to start winning some big matches. One of the better angles in this company lately has been this Champ challenge that Deonna Purrazzo has been doing. I love how she has a belt on each shoulder and does a gesture like her shoulders act as a scale when she does Champ. It's so subtle, but I think it's getting over. And Saturday's match with Taya Valkyrie should be a good one, especially considering that Taya's last match in Impact was a loss to Deonna about a year ago. It's really amazing how time flies, because that match felt like it was yesterday. This one is for the AAA World Women's title, which is interesting that that's the title they decided to put on the line. I think Taya wins the belt here, but since Deonna has a win over her previously, we're probably getting a rubber match down the road at some point. The X Division title is also on the line as Trey Miguel defends against Speedball Mike Bailey, who had an unbelievable weekend in Dallas recently, and Ace Austin. I kinda like this storyline with Bailey and Austin, and I've generally enjoyed Trey's matches, so this should be another good one. I'm just so happy that the X Division is finally back to where it should be in this company. This is once again the workhorse title. I don't think Bailey and Austin really needs to be a title program, as I can see them either as a tag team moving forward or in a singles feud without the title. Of the three guys in this match, I think Trey is the one who needs the title more to stay relevant. I see the end come where Bailey hits a high impact, pardon the pun, move on Trey, but before he can cover, Austin tosses him out of the ring, and then he thinks he can pick up an easy victory, only for Trey to catch him in a cradle or something to retain the belt. Of the three guys, I think Trey is the guy who is eventually going to use option C to challenge Josh Alexander or Moose for the world title later on. Rosemary of Decay will be challenging Tasha Steelz for the Knockouts title as well. Of all the matches on this card, this is probably the one that I'm least interested in. Tasha has had a less than impressive run thus far, but does have potential. I just don't like how she's the champion, but she's still viewed as the number 3 knockout in the division, behind Mickie James and Deonna Purrazzo. Maybe even number 4 if you include Jordynne Grace. I'm not expecting this to go very long, but I do expect Tasha to retain here as Savannah Evans gets into it with Havoc on the outside, and as Rosemary is temporarily distracted, Tasha takes advantage to keep the belt. You also have the multiple team match for the tag belts. I didn't see that match listed on the official card, so I don't know if it's been removed, but I can see great things happening in that one. The one wild card in this whole situation may be dem boys themselves, the Briscoes, who announced that they will be debuting in Impact the night after Rebellion in Poughkeepsie. But with this show also being in that very city, I can totally see them as being a surprise entrant in this match and walking away as your new Impact Tag Team Champions. The Impact World title match will close out the show, and you know what? Whether you're a fan of Moose or not, and I think the audience is still divided on that one, I have to say that this one has had a tremendous build both on and off screen. That said, they need to pull the trigger on Josh Alexander winning the title here. That is a must. Moose has had an okay run, but I don't even know where you go with him after this. Alexander wins clean and has the victory celebration that he should have gotten at Bound for Glory, with his family in the ring, the pyro if Impact can afford it, and confetti, the whole works. And if they're keeping the forbidden door open, perhaps it's time for Ethan Page to walk right through and challenge his former partner down the road. That may be in the forecast. Speaking of forecast, though, there's a little segment I usually do on this show following a pay-per-view preview. It's called Fantasy Forecast, where I attempt to predict the whole card for the next big show. In this case, it's Slammiversary. So let me gaze into my crystal ball and see if we can get this right. If my Rebellion prediction is true, that means Josh Alexander will be the world champion, probably come Slammiversary as well. And if it's Honor No More's goal to destroy Impact from within, as I said, then I think the opponent for him on that show will be the leader of Honor No More, Eddie Edwards. It would mean a great deal more if Edwards was the ROH World Champion, but whether he is or he isn't, that should be a compelling bout. So what do you do with Moose? Well, coming off a huge loss at Rebellion, he'll need to get some of that momentum back. And given that another big man is on the rise, I can see him and Jonah hooking it up. The women's title match should be interesting either way it goes, but let's say Taya does win the AAA women's belt at Rebellion. I'm picturing a three-way between the champions. A champ challenge, if you will, between Taya Valkyrie, Tasha Steelz, and Deonna Purrazzo, and it'll be winner take all. If the Briscoes are back and will in fact win the tag belts, possibly at Rebellion as I predicted, I can see them continuing their feud with the Good Brothers. In fact, let's add two other teams to the mix and make it a four-way. It'll be the Briscoes defending against Gallows and Anderson, the Motor City Machine Guns, and the Kingdom representing Honor No More. Bullet Club will probably have a busy night because I can also see Jay White stepping up as Trey Miguel's next challenger for the X Division title, just to add some more legitimacy to Trey's reign by giving him a strong win over a higher seed. Given the beatdown of W. Morrissey this past week, I can see him finding a partner to face Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. I'm assuming he has Enzo on speed dial. Closing out the card, you could also do a one-on-one match between Speedball Mike Bailey and Ace Austin, which should be fantastic. So that's Impact. Their big card is in 1 week, but for right now, I want to switch gears and talk about one of the hot new sitcoms. Well, still fairly new, it's only in its second season, and that's Young Rock. I've been a fan of this show. In fact, my wife, who doesn't follow wrestling at all, but is a huge fan of The Rock, loves it. We watch it together. So I can imagine that there must be others like her who don't watch the product, but who know who Dwayne Johnson is and tune in because of it. And I love how this show educates people about the wrestling business. If that is WWE's long-term plan to attract new viewers, then it's pretty genius. One of the characters introduced this season is a man named Downtown Bruno, who, at the request of Rocky Johnson, sort of took a teenage Dwayne under his wing and gave him a place to stay while the elder Rocky was working in the Memphis territory. The guy who plays Bruno on the show is an actor, but I chatted this week with the real Downtown Bruno. Let's take a listen. So, Young Rock is the new TV show, the new hit TV show on NBC. It airs every Tuesday night and is now in its second season. So, first of all, right off the start, I got to ask you, what have you thought of the series thus far?
Oh my gosh! I mean, obviously, I'm very biased and prejudiced in favor of it, of course. But I really love it because not during the Canadian football time or the times when he was in college. Besides that, I was with Dwayne for, I'm saying, 90% of these incidents or situations. So, it's almost, to use a word that Dwayne uses a lot when he discusses this, but I agree with it, surreal. Because, other than, little tweaks for make it more television friendly or whatever, and taking away some of the more hardcore things that we did when we were young, it's really very accurate. And like I said, I can say that from a first-hand basis, and that's me. I was right there in it. So, yeah, it's very accurate.
And being as close to Dwayne as you were, and you still are, and his family as well, there are a lot of other shows, wrestling related or not, that focus more on the dramatic elements of people's lives. Was it the right call, do you think, to make this a comedy series?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think so. Because personally, I don't even look at any of those. I'm not even mentioning any of them by name, but the ones that talk about the negative aspects of the business and of the world in general. It's time to just enjoy it. I mean, they're showing some serious things when his mom and dad had those issues, and when Dwayne had issues in football and whatnot. It's not just acting like everything was rainbows and unicorns all the time, but it's a lighthearted show with a lot of humor, a lot of family aspects that, no, I can't foresee any parent not allowing their children to watch it, whereas those other shows, drugs, death, this, that, and the other. But you know what? Those negative things are not exclusive to wrestling. I don't care what profession you bring up. I can get, and I'm not an expert on other professions, but I'd be sure willing to bet that, like I was talking to you earlier, I was at Home Depot buying some things for my fireplace. I bet there's some people at Home Depot that work there that may have had drug issues at one point, or infidelity in their marriage, or whatever. So it's not exclusive to our business. So I'm happy that there's a show that's not just dwelling on these negative things. And I think it's great. And I'm not just saying that because I'm involved in the show intricately. I'm saying it because I really feel that way. I really do.
And based on your knowledge of the real events that took place, especially centered around your own character, how accurate would you say the show has been?
I'd say, as far as the things I'm involved in, 90%. Like I said, some of them have been changed a little bit for TV purposes, and I get it. Like, they had Rocky Sr. wrestling Jeff Jarrett the other week on TV. Well, that never happened because they were both good guys at the same time when they were in Memphis together. But, I mean, I'm sure the reason they did that was because, the younger fans remember Jeff as Double J, the villain, in WWE and the other places he went. So I think that's probably why they said, okay, everybody will know who Jeff Jarrett is. Let's make him the bad guy. And it doesn't hurt nothing. I mean, yeah, back in 86 or 87, when that match would have taken place, like I said, they were both, good guys, fan favorites, so that wouldn't have happened. But, things like that. Like, and I never managed Bam Bam Bigelow, ever. But they had me managing him as his manager, on the show this week. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I never was his manager, but so what? It doesn't take away from the story. It wasn't like completely fabricated. We were in the organization at the same time. We got along great. We were friends. I guess since I'm part of the show and Bam Bam's part of the show, that's fine, because Larry Sharp was his manager actually in Memphis, but he's long, God rest his soul, passed away. And he wasn't that well known in the greater sense of the word. I mean, at one time, some people knew him. He had a training facility in New Jersey, the Monster Factory, that was well known, but as a person, he wasn't just intricate to the Young Rock type story. So I guess that's why they just chose to not include him in it. Nobody told me that, but that's my assumption.
According to the show, you had first met Dwayne when he was a high school student, and they did a good job of explaining how football was his chosen path at the time, but he also wanted to be close to his dad, of course, and learn the wrestling business. At the time, did you think that he would ever become a pro wrestler?
Honestly, I don't know at that time, because we really never even discussed it too much. In a way, I probably think no, because he seen what kind of life it was. It wasn't a great lifestyle at that stage of the game. Rocky was off doing what he was doing. Dwayne was 15, but living with me. I wasn't making him go to school or anything. It was like, again, this is just speculation. He probably says, oh my God, I don't want nothing to do with this. But I guess he figured he had to do something when football didn't pan out. And that's, he actually became kind of successful in the wrestling business, so to say the least.
Obviously, given the time constraints of a half-hour program, they needed to condense the Rock story quite a bit. Is there anything that you recall that's been left out thus far from your own experience with the show that you would have preferred included as part of the story?
Well, and I've discussed this with Dwayne too, actually. The one thing is, as everybody that's followed Dwayne's story that he's told on numerous occasions, I bought him his first car, and it was in downtown Nashville, and that's true. There was a guy sleeping in the back seat. But on the season 1, when they showed him getting his first car, they didn't involve me in any way. They invented a character, and that's fine. It didn't hurt my feelings or anything. But I just said, well, I wish they would have left it like it was. I thought it would have been better to the accurate route. But I mean, I don't care. I mean, that's the only thing. I couldn't figure out why they changed that when it was an intricate part of me and Dwayne's, friendship and relationship. But I mean, I guess they wanted to make a little storyline. They invented a character, and that's fine. If that's what they think is best, then hey, they make more money than I do. They must know what they're doing.
And what have you thought about your own portrayal in the series? Did you have any input?
Oh, I had a tremendous amount of input. Ryan Pinkston, who is the actor that plays me, we became really good friends now. And I'm telling you, I have nothing but praise for him. This young guy has, he's from Baltimore, or Maryland, Baltimore area, so he's not familiar with Mississippi or how we act and talk and behave, and then he's not, wouldn't have been familiar with me as far as my mannerisms and the way I talk and, portray and laugh and whatever. But evidently, he watched videos of me from the old days, and plus just having many Zoom conversations with me over the course of the months that he was filming my character. Everybody I've talked to says he's got me down to a T. I didn't realize I stinking laugh, but apparently I do. Everybody says, "Oh, he's got your laugh down to a T," and I love it. I mean, I got nothing but praise for him. I'm hoping he gets nominated for an Emmy Award. I really do. I mean, he's a great kid. You can look up on online. He's played in Will and Grace. He's played in I think it was Law and Order. I'm not sure. Not as a regular character, but he was I think he was on Law and Order one or two episodes. But I know he was a regular on Will and Grace. He was in the movie Spy Kids. He was a regular on Ashton Kutcher's show Punk'd that he used to have. And he's just a really phenomenal guy, and I'm very impressed with his betrayal. Poor trailer of me. Don't let anybody say I said he betrayed me. Portrayed me.
Got it. And going back to your first meeting before your first meeting with Dwayne, actually, can you tell me about your off-screen relationship with Rocky Johnson and how that all came about?
Oh my God, Rocky was one of my dearest friends ever in the business and in life, let alone the business. And he was instrumental in me becoming a manager in the business, which is how I made my bones. I was in Kansas City working for Bob Geigel on the ring crew, and I would referee just at the spot shows. I wasn't a full-time referee. And, I was like I am now, talkative and, like to laugh and joke around and tease people and just have a, good time and everything. And Rocky said I should be a manager. Well, Bob Geigel, great guy, if you're familiar with him, he used to run the NWA Central States promotion, and he was also the president of the NWA. But he was the old school Vern Gagne type guy that was interested in collegiate athletes, and this guy used to be a Greco-Roman wrestler, and they didn't like the Memphis stuff. The manager jumping around like me or Jimmy Hart or whoever, having fun. They liked the boring old time managers that would stand there with a suit and tie on and smoke a cigar or whatever, and not do anything. Which Rocky said, that's ridiculous. You ought to be. He goes, I'll tell you what. He goes, my in-laws run the promotion in Honolulu. He goes, how would you like to go to Honolulu and be a manager? I thought, really? He said, yeah, really. I think it was 83. I'm the world's worst at the numbers game, but I think it was 83. He booked me over there, and that's when I first became a manager. So that's, Rocky opened the door for me, too. Because, let's face it, I'm going to be sitting there talking to you 43 years later. If I broke into business in 79, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you if I'd just stayed in Kansas City putting up the ring. Where would I be? There wasn't much demand for, going all over the country, all over the world for a 16, 17-year-old ring crew guy. So, Rocky's one of the two people that opened huge amount of doors for me. In the business. And I've always been grateful. We were best friends up until the last time I seen him. We were always best friends, always.
At the time that Dwayne made it to the WWF, you had already been there for several years. How did you react to him being signed?
Oh, I thought it was great. I was happy about it. I'm the one that picked him up at the airport when he flew into Corpus Christi to go for his match. So I was, and then he wrestled a good friend of mine, close friend of mine, Brooklyn Ball, with Steve Lombardi. And I was very happy. I was thrilled for him, and I was happy that I have any idea he would take it as far as he did, I'd be a liar if I said, I knew immediately he'd be the biggest name in the world. No, and Dwayne knows I would. I'd be lying if I said that. I had no idea. I'm thrilled that he did, but I never dreamed he'd make it to that extent.
Do you have any road stories to tell from his rookie year in the company?
Well, not in the company. In Memphis, because they sent him to Memphis, which was the developmental territory for WWE at the time, okay? I never traveled with him in WWE, so I have no road stories of that. But he was in Memphis being developed as Flex Kavada, as I'm sure you probably know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where I traveled with him. At first, he would ride with me to the towns because I was in charge of the rings. It was me, Chili Willie, a little small African-American guy from South Memphis, Raymond, the big, fat African-American guy that did security plus worked on the ring from Midtown Memphis, and there was me. So it was the four of us riding to the towns together, and we got stopped by the cops one day. And I never, because there's nothing bad. Dwayne was actually driving, and he was speeding. And
right.
There's this big, athletic, biracial, athletic-looking, good-looking guy. There's me with beer and little white guy smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. And then Chili William Raymond sitting in the back seat. I remember the cop let us go. I'll never forget. He says, y'all four don't even look like you should know each other. But and we got out of it because he knew who I was. Because back then I was a well-known name, not Dwayne. But yeah, we traveled together the whole time he was in the USWA, the Memphis territory. But yeah, we never traveled together in when I say New York, the WWE
right.
Towns, because we were on separate agendas, basically, But we had a good time, though. We traveled together every week. We'd go eat on the way to the towns, and I would drink beer all the way up. I'd sober up. And I was pretty bad about drinking back then. And then I would sober up, I'd referee the match, have something to eat, and drink all the way back. And he would drive back. So it was kind of like his teenage years all over again.
And so one idea that they keep pushing on the show, one of the themes of the show anyway, is Dwayne Johnson's candidacy for president. Do you see that happening?
Right. I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, he's very charismatic. He's extremely intelligent. He's well-spoken. He's well-liked. The only thing I would hate to see him do that is only one reason. Not that I don't think he could make it or he would do a good job. I'm sure he would in both counts. But right away, when you become a candidate for any political office, and believe me, on this small level, I know, because I'm an elected official here in Walls, Mississippi. I'm on the Board of Aldermen. The minute you declare either Republican or Democrat, right away you've probably lost 50% of your support. Because, that's just how divided everything is now. And like I said, on a very small level, I've seen how that happened. So he's so popular and well-loved, and people want to come see his movies, watch his shows, come to see him if he's involved in WWE in any way. All of a sudden, I don't know whether he'd be a Democrat or Republican. It's none of my business. I've never discussed it with him. But right away, if he came out and said, I'm a Republican, a bunch of Democrats are going to, we ain't going to watch his movies no more, and vice versa. So, that to me, that would be the negative takeaway.
I hope you enjoyed that little interview there. It's a sign of things to come in the future as I'm planning more big interviews down the road. In the meantime, continue showing your support by inviting friends to join the Royal Ramble Facebook group. Follow me on Twitter at BlaneDebrain84 and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Blaine Vandergrind. For now, I will leave you with an ABC.